Hello, and welcome to the Haaretz Podcast. I'm Allison Kaplan Sommer in Tel Aviv. As the war in Gaza crossed the year-and-a-half mark, a growing number of prominent Israelis have grown increasingly vocal about their opposition to the war and amplified and sharpened their calls for it to end. According to Restart Israel, a progressive watchdog, petitions since April have gathered over 145,000 signatures from nearly every sector: scholars, soldiers, teachers, authors, university students, pensioners, rabbis, the list goes on. While these various petitions and letters appear to have had little impact on the Netanyahu government and its policies regarding the war, one recent petition called Stop the Horror in Gaza, signed by artists and performers from different fields, has had immediate consequences for some of the signatories, and particularly for those in the music industry. With me in the studio is Shay Ringel, a culture reporter for Haaretz who covers music in Israel and abroad, and has written about this controversy and the backlash against those who signed the anti-war letter. Our conversation is coming up.
I'm Esther Solomon, Editor-in-Chief of Haaretz English. Around the world, the fight is on to preserve critical and independent media. Haaretz, Israel's oldest newspaper, upholds its long tradition of accurate, committed, and incisive journalism, refusing to bend its reporting to pressure from any government or leader. A digital subscription to Haaretz gives you up-to-the-minute news and analysis in English from journalists who live Israel's reality and are committed to covering the Middle East and its global repercussions. At the same time, your subscription supports the cause of a free press that holds the powerful to account in Israel and around the world. I invite you to become a subscriber to Haaretz now. Just go to Haaretz.com and use the code Haaretz10, that's Haaretz with the number 10, for 10% off an annual subscription.
Shay Ringel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Shay, can you tell us about this controversial anti-war letter called Stop the Horror in Gaza that came from Israeli artists? How was this letter different from statements coming from Israeli artists previously over the course of the war? Are we talking a difference in numbers of signers, or was the language different?
I think both of them were different. First of all, there were a lot of people who signed. The names who signed the letter, the petition, are very big in Israel. Some of them are have culture significant in Israel. I can name a few, like Gidi Gov, Yudit Ravitz, very big singers who are considered to be very Israeli. So a lot of them signed the petition. There are roughly 1,200 people who signed the petition at the end, and the language was very different. We, members of the culture and artistic community in Israel, find ourselves against our will and our values as Israeli citizens, sharing responsibility for the horrifying events in the Gaza Strip, in particular the killing of children and other non-combatants, starvation and expulsion of population, and the senseless destruction of Gaza's cities. We call on all those involved in determining and implementing the policy: stop, do not give unlawful orders, and do not obey them. Do not commit war crimes. Do not abandon the principles of human morality and the values of Judaism. End the war, release the hostages. This kind of wording is very new. We didn't see anything like that in the last 2 years. Calling not just to stop the war. Usually those petitions were saying, stop the war, release the hostages. But talking about the horrific things that are happening in Gaza, the killing of children, the expulsion of population, this is something new. This is something we haven't seen in Israel. And of course, one of the big draws of this petition, the call to, even if you receive order, to not implement them. This is also something new that we haven't seen.
We're talking about not just something new in terms of the Gaza war, but to step back for a little bit of a historical perspective. There have been other wars in Israel, lots of them. There have been anti-war movements in Israel, lots of them. Even in that perspective, when we're looking at the Six-Day War, Yom Kippur, Lebanon War, is this a step beyond what anti-war movements in Israel have done in the past and what artists and musicians speaking against it have done in the past? Or is this maybe in line with something that we've seen?
Usually you wait until the war is over. You do not do it in the middle of the war. There's also an unprecedented thing here that the war has been going on for 2 years. Yes, so if you can wait all you want, but usually artists in Israel, even if they have political stand or political point of view, they will wait until they can say them. There's this dichotomy of calling our soldiers, they are soldiers on one side, but they are also our children because everyone in Israel is drafted. Also, a lot of these artists are performing for soldiers and they go to hospitals to visit wounded soldiers. So they are involved inside the machine. So usually they will wait until the war is over. I think this is the first time we are seeing a very big petition with a lot of big name artists in the middle of the war.
Can you characterize a little bit the artists that did sign on and the ones that are clearly not there signed on? Do you see characteristics of the ones that spoke out in this very strong language and those who are not willing to?
Yes, you can see if you will go over the list of the people who signed on the letter that the big names are older and most of them are in the 70s. Some of them are in the 50s. You will not find a lot of young artists. You will not find a lot of, let's say, artists from the hip-hop community, which are supposed to be a little bit more political involved. You will not find them. You will not find the big mainstream current artists that are now on the radio. They are absent from this list completely. There are few young artists, but very few of them. The big names are the ones who are maybe have some kind of comfortability to take a political stand in this time, or maybe they see themselves as so much integrated inside the culture of Israel that they can do something like that. And afterwards we saw that it's not true.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the backlash, which came pretty fast and furious. And the most public example of the backlash and it having an effect was a musician named Allison Kaplan, who is one of the classic names of Israeli music that you can't really dispute that he's inside the culture. And yet he was asked to pay a price for signing that petition.
Allison Kaplan is a great example because Allison Kaplan was someone who he's very embedded in the Israeli culture, and he performed a lot. He's performing in Tel Aviv for free, so he's being backed by the municipality, and he was supposed to perform in a festival organized by the JNF, the Jewish National Fund. They own a lot of land in Israel, a lot of national parks in Israel, and they organized a big festival. And last week, their CEO announced that he will cancel Allison Kaplan's performance in line of him signing the petition. Only an hour later, Allison Kaplan responded and said that he's removing his signature from the petition. He mentioned people who were hurt by his signature, people who lost someone in the war, and he announced that he's no longer signing the petition. An hour after that, the JNF announced that his performance is back on schedule, like nothing happened. So This entire thing happened in 2 hours, and it was an example of how this machine is working so fast and so efficiently. One moment you are just signing a petition, the other you are canceled, and then if you are deciding to go back in line, you will get your show back, you will get your audience back, and all is forgotten.
From what you're reporting and what you've heard, did this all happen spontaneously? The JNF decided to do it, or were there activists behind trying to immediately punish the artists who signed onto the petition?
So there are some activists, but let's focus on one because he's the main character and he's the main troublemaker, you can say. His name is Shay Ringel. Shay Ringel is a one-man show. He's a very, very good troll. He's very good at his job. He has an organization, he gets funded, and what he does from morning till night is finding exactly this kind of petitions, scanning the artists, seeing who is performing where, and using his connections to bother everyone until they are completely cancelled. So he wrote letters not just to the CEO of the JNF, he wrote a letter to every member of the JNF board, telling them, Alon Olearchik is on this petition. I will name you as enabling this man and giving him money, and I will call you. And he's very, very good at it. His organization is responsible for canceling a lot of shows, a lot of movie screenings of documentaries, who shows the Palestinian side or any Palestinian narrative or anything that depicts any sympathy for the Palestinian narrative, or even just any movie that is critical to the Israeli government. And Shay Ringel is very, very good at his job. He's been texting me the entire week, telling me, look, why don't you say my name in your articles? I'm responsible.
He wants credit.
He wants credit. And Shay Ringel won't stop. Shay Ringel won't stop and is funded. He's funded very, very well. And he's like phenomenon.
But there's also some natural ambivalence towards the strong language of the letter as well. Some of the artists backtracked. They didn't take their name off. Singer Asaf Amdorsky seems to be trying to split the difference, signing it and then kind of putting in social media that he doesn't really mean it.
Yeah.
And there's also pushback in the artistic community from their peers. Idana Amedi, who's a singer, and he starred in Fauda. That's how many people might recognize him. He called some of the signers of the petition some fairly insulting names, right?
Idana Amedi is a very interesting story because you can say that if the people who signed the petitions are like embedded in the Israeli culture, they are the old guard. And I think Idana Amedi is the new guard. He is also a soldier who was wounded very badly in this war and had to overcome a very long process of rehabilitation. And his saying means a lot to a lot of Israelis. And on the day that the petition was published, he wrote a very, very difficult words. He called them privileged. He says that if you were not in Gaza, you don't understand what's really going on there. He said that calling what the Israeli army is doing their war crimes is a crime on its own. And at the end, he called them worthless. Afterwards, he backed only from that word, but he left the comment there. And Idana Amedi, I think, represented really, really fast the voice of the majority of the Israelis who looked at this petition. I think that most people will agree with him. He became like a symbol. On the day that the petition was published, a lot of the headlines were about Idana Amedi and not about the petition itself.
So Idana Medi's younger. You said fewer younger artists signed the petition. There's a generational phenomenon happening here. Do you think that's because the younger generation is more right-wing and patriotic, because they're more likely to have served themselves, have friends in military service as younger people? Or do you think it's because they're younger and more vulnerable and fear retaliation and have more to lose maybe than the older artists who signed the petition?
What came first? Are they more patriotic because they are so embedded in the system? They need the money. They need the municipalities who ordered them to come on Independence Day to perform. Or are they really aligned with the goals of the war? We don't know. We also don't know, if you ask a lot of these artists, what are the goals of the war in this time? I think many of them won't have a good answer. So even if they believe in their whole heart that war crimes are not committed in Gaza right now, at least you would expect to see like another petition with a different wording that will come from Israeli artists. And you don't see that. So the fact that many young Israeli artists are not speaking, I think it's because they are so used to the fact that if they will speak, they will have big consequences. And they will see a backlash, not just from their audience, but from the Israeli government and their organizations, like the JNF, like municipalities around the country. And they making music in Israel, it's such a small country. There are not a lot of audiences, and everything you do is a risk. And musicians don't take risks these days.
Shay, you also cover Israeli culture, music abroad. Every summer, thousands of young Israelis go to music festivals in Europe. Israeli DJs are very popular as rave artists and other kinds of festivals. How has the war changed that?
I think the big story here is Tomorrowland, which happened last month.
Tomorrowland is a festival in Belgium?
Yeah, Tomorrowland, it's not always in Belgium. It travels, but they usually have, every year, there was an Israeli DJ called Skazi, who's been performing at Tomorrowland for 13 years. And this is the first year where his show was cancelled. It was cancelled on the same day it was supposed to take place. At the beginning, the claims were that there was a security alarm. But at the end, even Skazi admitted that pro-Palestinian organization in Belgium pushed the festival to cancel his appearance. But Skazi is also very, very embedded in the Israeli army. He calls himself a combat DJ, and he performs for Israeli soldiers. And those images made rounds in Europe. And I think this is why the pro-Palestinian organizations in Europe decided to tackle him specifically. On the other hand, I can give the example of Dudu Tassa. Dudu Tassa is a very famous Israeli singer. He's also performing with Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead. And his shows in England were cancelled with Johnny Greenwood because of his Israeli background. So the BDS organization is working tirelessly on boycotting Israeli culture.
And the war is causing them to have more success than in the past, you think?
Yes, you can see that. You can see that the BDS is taking ground. And a lot of Israeli artists who used to perform in Europe say that their phone calls are not being picked up. Even if it's silent, they are still not being invited to perform in Europe as much as they used to in the past.
Well, one concert they're not going to be invited to probably is a large concert that's planned in Wembley Stadium in Great Britain that you've written about. It's supposed to be a massive concert for Gaza, which we have not seen on this scale so far, right?
Yeah, it's being produced by Brian Eno. Brian Eno has been for years a big supporter of the BDS movement. He used to write letters to artists who used to come to Israel to perform, telling them that they should reconsider. And he's producing a very big event called Artists for Palestine. And it's Wembley Arena. It's 1,200 seats, but it's the biggest event we've seen yet, with a very impressive lineup. It will be a big show with lots of big names, and will show how much the music community in Europe is aligned with the Palestinians and with the Palestinian cause.
So what you describe makes it look as if it's not a fun time to be an Israeli musician, performing artist, especially if you have international aspirations. They're kind of between a rock and a hard place. They can't win. Right?
Yeah. The big problem right now for an Israeli artist, for an Israeli musician, is that you can be boycotted at home or abroad. And you need to pick who will boycott you. A lot of the artists say, don't get me involved in this. I just want to play music. I just want to make people happy, etc. I personally believe that it's always political. Music is a political tool, and you need to voice your opinion if you are a musician. It will always be political.
Shay Ringel, thank you so much for your coverage of what's going on in Haaretz, and thank you for joining the podcast.
Thank you.
And that's all for this episode of the Haaretz Podcast. Thanks to my guest, Shay Ringel, and to producer and editor Nara Malkin. If you want to continue to listen to the podcast and make sure you don't miss an episode, please subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to keep up with all the latest news on Israel, the Middle East, and the Jewish world, don't forget to subscribe and follow Haaretz.com. I'm Allison Kaplan Sommer, and until next time, shalom from Tel Aviv.